The Brewers are in the postseason, and it's time to talk playoff baseball on the Hunter Baumgardt Sports Podcast. Thanks so much for tuning into the latest episode, either on YouTube or SoundCloud. Remember, you can watch on YouTube or listen on SoundCloud. My name is Hunter Baumgardt, your host. You can follow me on Twitter and Instagram at HunterBOnAir, and feel free to like the Facebook page as well, Hunter Baumgardt Sports. It is time to talk Brewers baseball. They are in the postseason, and they're facing the LA Dodgers. Game 1 is Wednesday night, 9 o'clock Central Time in LA. Traveling all the way out to the West Coast. Longest travel trip of the season because, of course, the Brewers only played NL Central opponents and AL Central opponents during the regular season. So this is going to be completely different. It's going to be going to a coast. First time this season that has happened. But the LA Dodgers coming in 43-17, Brewers 29-31, massive underdogs. All the experts, I saw 58 experts pick the Dodgers so far. When I'm recording this, whether it's on ESPN, MLB.com, The Athletic, whatever it happens to be, 58-0 in favor of the Dodgers. Obviously, the Brewers are massive underdogs. We're going to get into everything. Let's do a comprehensive Dodgers-Brewers series preview. It's only a 3-game series, and that is going to play a key part in why I think the Brewers actually have a chance in this series. It is not going to be easy. I'm not saying they are going to win, but they have a chance, and we're going to get to that. We're going to get to the pitching of both teams. I'll kind of give you the background of how both teams, Dave Roberts on the Dodgers and Craig Counsell on the Brewers, might go about how they're going to pitch this series, and we'll also go lineup by lineup and kind of see, okay, where does everything fall? What are the injuries on both sides? And kind of go from there, and I'll give you my predictions and thoughts and keys to how the Brewers can win this series coming up later in the podcast. So let's get started. First, how the Brewers got into the postseason. I mean, they lost on Sunday. Of course, you're thinking, if they lose, they probably don't have a shot, right? Because the Phillies and Giants both have to lose, but they did on Sunday, which you still think back on and go, you realize how hard that was to happen. The Giants lost Saturday, Sunday. The Phillies lost Saturday, Sunday. And the Brewers happened to get that Saturday night win, which propelled them up into the postseason. If they don't win on Saturday, I don't think they get into the postseason. So it was just a huge win Saturday night, a massive pitching performance by Brandon Woodruff, who we'll get to, who I think maybe will probably start game 2. At the time of recording this podcast, the Brewers have not announced starters for the series, and so that is what we're going to kind of be going off of here when I talk about the pitching. But amazing that they got in 29-31. And this notion that, some fans, some media members are kind of like, whatever, who cares that they're in? They'll lose anyway. It'll be 2 games and the series will be over. You could be right. You could be right that there could be just 2 games and the series could be over. But here's the deal. Why not get excited for Brewers playoff baseball? It's the 3rd year in a row. It's the 3rd year we've had an opportunity to watch the Brewers in the postseason. I realize they wouldn't have made it if they would have kept the 5 teams like normal. But if they would have kept the 5 teams like normal, what is a 60-game sample like, right? If you put this out into 162 games, you realize the Brewers probably would have ended up, 5-6 games under 500, which isn't terrible, but probably wouldn't have gotten them in the postseason or regular season. However, you don't know if they would have went on a streak. We don't know if they went on a big winning streak and maybe ended up 5 games over 500 and got in. That's why they expanded the postseason. And that's why I agree with the expanded postseason. Because if you're gonna put everybody into 60 games, you want to have more, you don't give opportunities for the players and for these teams to come back like the Nationals did last year, who were 18-31, and then they came back and made the playoffs and made the World Series. That's what you don't get the opportunity of in a 60-game season. So that's why they expanded the postseason. I hope they actually don't keep this. I hope at the most they have 6 teams and do it the NFL way, where the 1 and 2 seeds have buys, and then you have 3, 6, 4, 5. But I'm not sure if that'll happen, or they'll maybe go to this 8. I'm not sure what the future of baseball holds. But this year we got 8 teams, and the Brewers are in it. They earned it. I know they have a losing record. The Astros do as well. So you're in the same boat as the Astros there, and they're 29-31. They're a game from. If they would have won Sunday, they would have been at 500. It's not like this team's 20-40 and they're in the postseason. Let's not get too crazy about that. But just enjoy it, right? Let's enjoy this in a year that's had not a lot of enjoyable moments. Enjoy Brewers playoff baseball, and if they play the Dodgers, why not, take the underdog, and here we go. So let's start with the pitching of this series. We've got some interesting things here. The biggest thing, I think, for the Milwaukee Brewers is the loss of Corbin Burnes. The loss of Corbin Burnes is absolutely huge for this team. He didn't have his best outing against St. Louis, but he's better than any alternative on this team on paper, right? He had the best ERA coming into that St. Louis start. He was going for the Cy Young, coming in with a 1.77 ERA. I do think part of the reason he didn't pitch well against St. Louis was because he was injured, because he was hurting. And so, unfortunately, that is going to be missing for the Milwaukee Brewers come this week. And that's a big loss because you lose a Cy Young candidate. That's you. It's like the Dodgers losing their game one starter Walker Buehler or Clayton Kershaw. So I would have loved my 1-2 punch of Corbin Burnes and Brandon Woodruff. You take Corbin Burnes out of there, it makes it so much harder for the Brewers to beat the Dodgers. But what are they going to do here? You have Brandon Woodruff, of course, your opening day starter, had a great outing, struck out 10 batters in 8 innings on Saturday night against the Cardinals, basically saving the Brewers season. And he might be on the mound to save the Brewers season again come Wednesday night or Thursday night when the Brewers take the field. Now, I think he would be on short rest if he went on game 1. Give him another day and pitch in game 2, because then you can go, you can do something different in game 1. If you somehow pull off game 1, the Dodgers are staring down Brandon Woodruff, your opening day starter, one of the best in the league this year. I think that has them on their heels. Then they're thinking, we're the 1 seed. We lose one more game and we're out and we're facing Brandon Woodruff. So you say Brandon Woodruff for game 2. If they were in the Dodgers scenario, I'd say go and maybe put him on short rest and go in game 1, because you don't want to lose that game 1. But the Brewers, they're playing kind of with house money here. I mean, they're not, obviously they're not favored in any stretch of the imagination. So if I were them, go with Brent Suter in game 1 and only have him go 3-4 innings, because you could pair Brent Suter and maybe Freddie Peralta to go in this game 1. Now, Brent Suter, again, the when I'm doing this, the game 1 starter, game 1-2 starter, they've not been announced. So that's what I want to put out there. But in game 2 of the doubleheader in St. Louis on Friday, Lindblom didn't do good. However, Brent Suter, Lindblom would be another option. Suter, though, he's gone. These are his 3 September starts. 3 innings, no runs. 3 innings, no runs. 4 innings, no runs. That is what you need, right? Because if he can go 3 or 4 innings, hopefully he can go 4. You get Peralta for maybe 5, maybe have him pitch 5, 6, and then Yardley in the 7th, Williams in the 8th, and Hader in the 9th, or maybe throw Knebel in there, and you got a pretty good, pitching lineup there. Now, Freddie Peralta obviously didn't do great in the game against Cincinnati on Sunday and kind of blew up, but I think that was kind of like just getting thrust back into pitching. He was gone, obviously. His family, he had a baby born a couple of days before, and so I think that was kind of throwing at him, a lot to come into a game they had to win in a weird scenario with no warm up. I mean, let's just kind of throw that out the window in my opinion, because Freddie Peralta, I think he does bounce back. And like I said, he can go in a long relief scenario. I think he has a 3.99 ERA. That's not too awful. So here's the deal. Put Suter out there in game 1, that use a bullpen game in game 1. Then you could even have Hauser in a long relief role, see what he can do there. And then have Woodruff in game 2, who, like I said, because, you get game 1, you have Woodruff in game 2, and I think you're really sitting pretty there, which would be awesome. So that's what I think for the Milwaukee Brewers. Now, game 3, I'm not sure. I think Lindblom is an option. Brett Anderson, if he's not hurt, right? That index finger with the blister, how does that play in all this? Can he pitch or not? That is going to be the question. But he might be your game 3 starter if he's healthy in a win-or-go-home scenario. Now, for the LA Dodgers, they have already announced their starters. Walker Buehler will start in game 1. Clayton Kershaw will start in game 2. Buehler, a 3.44 ERA. He's pitched in 8 games this year, just over 36 innings. But he didn't go more than 5 innings in any of his outings in September. So even though he's 1-0, 3.44 ERA, played or pitched in 8 games, just over 36 innings through the season. In September, he didn't go more than 5 innings. So look for the Dodgers bullpen to be a key factor in game 1, okay? So look for that, because he's probably not going to go more than 5, I would think. Maybe he goes 6, depending on obviously how he's doing. Hopefully the Brewers offense can jump on him, but most likely he would go 5 or 6. And therefore, you're going to look at the bullpen, right? What does the Dodgers bullpen, look like? Well, Pedro Baez, Blake Treinen. I'm probably pronouncing that wrong. Treinen. Should have looked that up before, but they are the right-handed setup man for the Dodgers. Baez with a 3.18 ERA and Blake with a 3.86 ERA. And so those are the guys coming out of the bullpen. Their pitching staff is obviously very, very talented. They're a 43-17 team. I mean, obviously they're going to be a good pitching staff. And then, you have those guys. Dylan Floro has been the guy that's kind of pitched the Dodgers out of jams for David Roberts. He is, for Dave Roberts, I should say. Floro has a 2.59 ERA. But then you have this guy named Victor Gonzalez, a young lefty, kind of the go-to lefty with Caleb Ferguson, who had to have Tommy John surgery. Victor Gonzalez, watch for him in this series. 1.33 ERA. He's a lefty, 20 innings pitched, 1.33 ERA. He's very good. So if he comes in, look out. The Brewers might struggle against him. So that could be an option. So those are kind of your guys. Then, of course, you have Kenley Jansen, who's the closer for the Dodgers. He has 11 saves this year, 3.33 ERA. Not a bad year at all as well. So, you don't want to face Victor Gonzalez. You could face Baez. You could face Blake Treinen. They're not, these guys aren't household names, but they're super solid out of the bullpen. So even if Walker Buehler goes, 5-6 innings, the Dodgers bullpen is still going to be a factor and still going to pitch well. So Brewers are going to have their work cut out for them, if you will. Now, you go to the Brewers bullpen. Like I said, if they say do a bullpen game, obviously your two guys that will, nail down a win for you, or if it's close, Devin Williams and Josh Hader. Devin Williams, named on Monday the NL reliever of the month for September. And the guy, I mean, what can you say about him? 0.77 ERA. I think he had a 0.33 ERA, or he might have had a 0 ERA in September. I can't remember exactly off the top of my head, but his ERA in September was through the roof. 0.77 ERA in 27 innings pitched. I mean, you look at Victor Gonzalez on the other side, who's been a really good go-to lefty for the Dodgers, 1.33 ERA in only 20 innings pitched. So Devin Williams has pitched 7 more innings, and he's kept that ERA at 0.77. Yikes. He set an all-time record with a 53% strikeout rate this season, Devin Williams. Now, if you extrapolate that to 162, 53% probably goes down. But if you're just taking this, this short spurt and saying, "Yep, here we go," 53% strikeout rate this season would be the highest of all time. Now, another guy in this bullpen, like say Josh Hader, who I believe led the NL in saves this year. So you have Josh Hader, obviously. Eric Yardley could be a big guy in this series because he's been a guy who hasn't been talked about hardly as much as some of these other guys, but has quietly had a good year. 1.54 ERA with 23 innings. Okay, 1.54 ERA in 23 innings. And he could be put in, like I said, a 7th inning role, a 6th inning role, depending on when you need him. Maybe in game 2, you have Woody go 6, then you have Yardley, Williams, Hader. You could have a Yardley, Williams, Hader kind of trio like you had Hader, Jefferson, and Knebel just a couple of years ago. And I know that Yardley isn't 2018 Jefferson and Knebel, well, you could compare probably Devin Williams and a 2018 Corey Knebel or what have you. But I think it's very important for the Milwaukee Brewers to have a lead or be tied, late in the game, because I think then their pitching can nail it down with Yardley, and then of course with Williams, and then of course with Hader. Now, what scares me is the Craig Counsell's been putting Rasmussen and Claudio in these big scenarios, especially Rasmussen. Rasmussen's ERA is now up to 5.87, and I don't know if I'm really comfortable with him in a leverage scenario against the Dodgers in the postseason. Claudio, 4.26 ERA. He is not as good as he was last year. I don't know if it's needing to face more batters and not just your one guy kind of pitcher like he was last year when he led the league in appearances, but so those guys kind of scare me. A guy to watch out for out of this Brewers bullpen that looked really, really good on Sunday in the loss to the Cardinals when he was kind of pitching in garbage time, if you will, is Justin Topa. Not a household name. He's only pitched 7 2/3 innings, but he has a 2.35 ERA, and he has 12 strikeouts in those 7 2/3 innings. 12 strikeouts, 7 2/3 innings, right? That's better than Woody's performance on Saturday when he had 10 strikeouts in 8 innings. So Justin Topa is a guy who could possibly play a role in this series if they put him on that postseason roster and he's able to come in and maybe he could be coming in after Brent Suter for an inning or two, or after Woody if you need it, if Woody has to go only 4 or 5 innings, Brandon Woodruff. So Justin Topa, watch for him. He could be good, and trust him if he comes out there. Now, he is young, so not super young, but he's, not your Devin Williams or your Josh Hader. So that's kind of look at the pitching side for the Brewers and the Dodgers. Again, the Brewers have not announced, when I'm recording this podcast, they have not announced game 1 or 2 starters. The Dodgers are going with Walker Buehler in game 1 and Clayton Kershaw in game 2. And you could have Woodruff against Kershaw in game 2, which would be a rematch of those two when they pitched against each other in the NLCS. And Woodruff went yard on Clayton Kershaw. Now, Woodruff won't bat because the DH is there, but that's just the deal. Okay, so let's take a look at the hitting side of this, because I think that is obviously what a lot of Brewers fans are thinking about. We've realized that the Brewers have pretty good pitching this year, right? It's not been a year where it's just like, gosh, we score 6 runs, but we always give up 7. No, we've scored 2 runs, but we always give up 3. So it's like you can't expect much more than what the Brewers pitching staff has done this season, and they're 11th in the major leagues in pitching, 11th. And so you got to account for that. And they've had not a bad year in pitching, but it's been all about that really, really sluggish and inconsistent offense. And so unfortunately, I think that's what you have to look at and say, do the Brewers even have enough offense to compete in this series? Because you could obviously, on paper, you could say Dodgers are going to win every game 9-0. I mean, really. I mean, Woodruff maybe not, maybe 4-0, 5-0 game there, but what are the Brewers shown that they can play remotely close or good on the offensive side? I'm not exactly sure. So let's look at this, though. And let's look at these offenses. The Brewers offense, so from September 15th to September 20th, 5 of 6 games, they've scored 5 runs or more during that stretch. But since then, in the last 8 games of the season, they scored no more than 3 runs in any of the last 8 games. That is super worrisome. Now, they were facing both Cincinnati and St. Louis. Cincinnati has the 7th best pitching staff in the majors. St. Louis, the 9th best pitching staff. So obviously that was a deal with that, but the Dodgers obviously have a really, really good pitching staff. On the other side, the Dodgers offense hasn't scored less than 3 since September 14th. So they've gone half the month of September without scoring less than 3. So if you had to look at this series, you go, what in the world? I mean, the Brewers haven't scored more than 3 in the last 8 games, and the Dodgers haven't scored less than 3 in their last 16 games. Obviously, that plays to the Dodgers, to the LA Dodgers strategy or favor here. But one other thing I want to note, and we'll get into some of the specific numbers, and we'll go over these lineups, kind of see what we might think. Again, I'm Hunter Baumgardt. You're watching the Hunter Baumgardt Sports Podcast on YouTube or listening to it on SoundCloud. I want to talk about Christian Yelich. And Adam McCalvy, Brewers MLB.com insider, he covers the Brewers. And he was on a radio show in Milwaukee earlier this week, and he was talking about how Christian Yelich's press conferences, they've talked to him, I think 6 times or so, 8 times maybe during the season. He said every Yelich press conference has been heavy. It's been, even if he has a good game, it's just been, you can tell something's weighing on his mind. You can tell he's just not in the same mindset he has been the last couple of years. He said that it was heavy until Sunday night when they talked to him after the Brewers clinched. He said he was kind of in a different mood and a different Christian Yelich. So can Yelich wipe the slate clean out of this awful year where he hit .205 with a 786 OPS, which is down from 1.100 in 2019 and 1.100 in 2018 when he won the NL MVP award in 2018. Right? I mean, can he do this? Can he wipe the slate clean and be this different Christian Yelich? Now, he hit just 175 in the 2018 NLCS against the Dodgers. So it's not like he has this great success against the Dodgers. He did have that game 7 home run, which was big, which kind of put the Brewers on the board first. Obviously, they ended up losing, but he did hit a home run there. I do think he has a chance to wipe this clean. It's all going to be about that mental aspect, though. And I think one thing that we forget about with this with Christian Yelich and how much he has struggled this year. Now, there's a lot of people that have struggled. Bellinger on the other side for the Dodgers has very much struggled. Muncy has struggled on the other side. Jock Peterson has had a disappointing year. So you have some guys that have disappointed on the other side. The Dodgers, who are the best team in baseball, but Christian Yelich, I think we have to think about Lorenzo Cain and the loss of him, not only on the field. And I know you're like, oh my gosh, Lorenzo Cain was on this team. I forgot. It's easy to forget that this guy would have been a major impact on the offense, and I believe would have won 2 or 3 more games and might have even gotten second in the NL Central, would have played the 4 seed. I mean, I honestly think that. But looking at the Christian Yelich's season, I think a massive part of one of the reasons, ever since Christian Yelich got here, Lorenzo Cain has been here. Lorenzo Cain and Christian Yelich were acquired, I believe, if I remember this right, on the same day for the Milwaukee Brewers. So every time that Yelich has walked into the clubhouse, every time that Christian Yelich has taken the field, Lorenzo Cain has been there. Now, I'm not saying that he hasn't gotten injured, right? Both guys have spent some time out injured. So I'm not saying that every time they've exactly played together, Yelich has played whatever, left field or right field, and Lorenzo Cain has played center. I'm not saying that that's been consistent. What I'm saying is every single time they've been in the clubhouse together. So to have that all of a sudden be different this year, on top of everything else, the protocols, obviously staying safe with COVID, no fans, there's been so much that has changed. But when those two don't know any better than playing together on a baseball team since they both got to Milwaukee, other than when Cain was here in his early career, I think that has a mental hit to Christian Yelich. Lorenzo Cain, we've heard time and time again how big of a clubhouse personality he is, and the leader of that team, one of the leaders, with Ryan Braun and Christian Yelich. And Ryan Braun and Christian Yelich, I think, have had to take on more of that leadership role, especially Ryan Braun. And I think Christian Yelich is probably struggling a little bit with that and with the mental aspect of not having Lorenzo Cain there. So I truly think, and this isn't just an excuse, I truly think that we have to think about that Christian Yelich has been affected by not having Lorenzo Cain on the team, on top of everything else. Of course, I'm sure all the other stuff with no fans and protocols and all that have weighed on him as well. But I think, we see other guys being able to overcome that, like a Jed Jerko, like an Eric Sogard, or, some of these other guys. But I think Christian Yelich, I think Lorenzo Cain's absence really, really hurt him. Now, of course, he hasn't hit the same since he went out, with that knee injury in Miami last year. So, that's something to watch as we go forward if it's more of a normal season next year. But that is my thought on Christian Yelich. Like I said, maybe he can wipe the slate clean and we can have a lot of fun watching Christian Yelich bat in Chavez Ravine in LA, but we'll see. Keston here is another guy who absolutely needs to get better. He had an NL worst 34.6% strikeout rate this year. That cannot happen. It just cannot happen. So hopefully, and we hope upon hope, that Keston here will do something in this series. He did a little better towards the end of the year, but hopefully he can. Now, another guy in that Brewers lineup is a guy who has surprised a lot of people, and that's Daniel Vogelbach, a guy they got. He was an all-star, believe it or not, last year, but the guy went 5 for 57 with the Mariners and Blue Jays to start this season. And then the Brewers get rid of Justin Smoak, and then they get Daniel Vogelbach, who then goes 19 for 58 with the Brewers. So he gets 14 more hits with the Brewers, including 4 home runs, 12 RBIs in just 19 games. So basically, he spent half of his season with the Mariners and Blue Jays, got 5 hits, spent the other half with the Brewers and got 19 hits with 4 homers and 12 ribbies. That's a guy you need out there. And Craig Counsell said yesterday that he's like, they're still assessing Vogelbach's leg issue, but he said it's important that Vogelbach's in the lineup. He said, I know Daniel will do everything he can, and we will do everything we can to get him in there. It's important that we get Daniel in there against right-handed pitchers for sure. So that is absolutely true. He's a lefty, power-hitting lefty, and he's been great. Just even if he puts the bat out there, a little single, really, really good. So that is a guy who can be a contributor. Now, Ryan Braun, of course, is another guy, and we've seen big moments out of him. Not only some this year, but in years past. We all know that, and this might be his last series as a Milwaukee Brewer, which I hope it is, and I hope he comes back next year, but he's obviously toying with retirement. He went 2 for 25 in the final stretch for the Brewers, and so his last 25 at-bats, he's only gotten 2 hits, so he needs to also turn it around. Now, there's just so many, and, I'm saying as I look here and I look at the lineup, which I'm going to put on the screen, projected lineups here in a second, I'm looking at it, and I just talked about Christian Yelich, Ryan Braun, Daniel Vogelbach, and Keston Hiura. But if you focus on what I said about Yelich, Braun, and Hiura, those are 3 guys who have really struggled, especially as of late. Now, those are your 2, 3, 5 hitters, or maybe even 2, 3, 4 hitters. That's what scares you going into the series against the Dodgers, because if you don't have production from your 2, 3, 4, how are you going to win, right? You can't rely on Jed Jerko. I mean, you have throughout the season, but you can't rely necessarily on Sogard, Narvaez, and maybe even Arcia to be Christian Yelich and be Keston Hiura and be these guys. So I really do think that they really do need to step up in this series. But let's take a look at these projected lineups. Let's first look at the Milwaukee Brewers lineup here as you're seeing it on the screen. Avisail Garcia, center field, would probably bat first. Then this is your main lineup, right? Yelich in left, Braun in right, Vogelbach DH, Hiura at second, Jerko at first, Sogard at third, RC at short, Narvaez catching. This is obviously without Jace Peterson, without Nottingham, any of these guys, Tyrone Taylor, who have been on this team as of late. RC is a guy who you love to have. I would almost put him up, further up in the order. It's definitely possible that they do, although Counsell really likes RC in that 8 role. Kind of get some production out of the bottom of that order. But Arcia had a very good NLCS against the Dodgers back in 2018 and a great postseason that year. And he's just kind of been great late in the year. So hopefully he continues that this year. But that's your projected lineup for the Milwaukee Brewers. Now let's go to the Dodgers. Talk about them here in just a second. Now, before we go to the Dodgers here, I want to talk about quickly the team offenses and the St. Louis Cardinals. So listen to this, okay? Because this gives some context, some good context, I think, of why the Milwaukee Brewers have been so not good on the offensive side, okay? The NL Central, right? You have 60 games this year. 40 games are against your division. So 40 games for the Brewers have been against the NL Central. If you look around the NL Central, look at these pitching rankings. Cincinnati is 7th in pitching in the MLB. St. Louis, 9th. Chicago, 10th. Pittsburgh, 19th. Okay, throw Pittsburgh out, but I mean, Pittsburgh, 19th isn't 30th by any stretch. But you're facing like 30 of your 60, half of your games are against top 10 pitching staffs. Obviously, your offense is going to struggle. Now, think about this. The Brewers' offense is second best in the NL Central. The Cardinals are 22nd in offense in the in the major leagues. The Brewers are 26th. The Chicago Cubs are 27th, Pirates 28th, and the Reds are dead last at 30. It's not like you're just out to lunch here. This NL Central pitching has been outstanding, and that has contributed to some offensive woes. Now, the Brewers, it doesn't get any easier with the LA Dodgers, but what I'm saying is it makes sense that the Brewers offense has struggled so much because you've had such good pitching in the NL Central. So I think we have to take that with a grain of salt, especially if the Brewers somehow get past the Dodgers. That I was hoping that they play the Braves, because I think the Braves have they have a worse ERA than any of those teams except the Pirates, and so you play a team like that, and the Brewers offense could come alive. That's why I was hoping they can get a win or two at the end of the year there to maybe get the 7 seed and go and play the Braves like the Reds are starting Wednesday morning. So I think that kind of explains a little bit why the Brewers offense has been so poor so far this season. Okay, let's take a look at the Dodgers projected lineup that scares you a little bit. So the Dodgers projected lineup looks like this. You got Mookie Betts in right, Corey Seager at short, Justin Turner at third, Max Muncy, Will Smith, Cody Bellinger, Pollock, Peterson, Chris Taylor. Justin Turner has finished the season with 30 consecutive games getting on base. Pollock has 10 homers in September. They just have so many guys that can hurt you. Now, Bellinger, Muncy, and Peterson, like I said, have not had great years. So is it possible that they could catch some of these other guys off guard with their pitching? Maybe, right? But you have to watch out. Justin Turner, obviously, who's kind of been Mr. October, has killed the Brewers in the past. We'll see what he can do. Obviously, he's probably going to be their third hitter, but and should be ready to go. They've talked about injuries a little bit, but Justin Turner should be fine as far as that goes. And Mookie Betts as well. Mookie Betts got drilled in the hip on Saturday, but I think he's going to be all right. It sounds like, according to Dave Roberts. So, looking at this, obviously this lineup is very stacked. Obviously this lineup is going to do some damage. There's so many guys that can hurt you in that lineup. Mookie Betts obviously is the top of that, and then you got a guy like Cody Bellinger who's hitting sixth. It's like Christian Yelich hitting sixth, which he probably should, but we're just counting on him to somehow turn it around every single game, but he just hasn't. But so Cody Bellinger and Christian Yelich, which guy will come out and have the better series? And I think that team might win the series. It might just come down to that. Now, the Dodgers have so many other guys who can contribute more than the Brewers do, so it might not come down to that for the Dodgers, but I think it comes down to that for the Milwaukee Brewers. Dodgers are 11th in hitting in the MLB, so just take that what it's worth. MLB, so Dodgers are 11th, Brewers are 26th. All right, last couple of things I'll leave you with this before we wrap it up here. Obviously, all the games are going to be played at Dodger Stadium. Wednesday's first game starts at 9. Dodgers are 21-9 this season at Dodger Stadium. And, there's history between these two. These two played in the 2018 NLCS. And, Dodgers did win 2 of the 3 games at Dodger Stadium in that NLCS. But the Brewers have won or split each of the last 3 regular season series between the teams there. So when Brewers have went to LA, they've either won or split the series the last 3 regular seasons. They've got a chance. The Dodgers lost 2 of 3 11 different times this season. 11 different times. The Dodgers lost 2 of 3. That's all that needs to happen here. The Brewers just need to win 2 games. 2 out of 3. Take a series, go on. Right? There's an opportunity here. The last time the Brewers played the Dodgers at Dodger Stadium was last April in 2019. Brewers won 2 of 3. Right? I mean, there's a chance here. Now, this is a completely different team. Not completely, but a very different team as far as offensive production, as far as star power. You're not going in there with Grandal. You're not going in there with Moustakas. You're going in there with a Jed Jerko, with an Eric Sogard. That's completely different. But all you need to do is win a couple of games. So, obviously, the Brewers are the major underdog. Like I said earlier, like 58 experts have pitched the Dodgers, and none of them have pitched the Brewers. Now, Woodruff has to have a Woodruff-like outing, whether it's in Game 1 or Game 2. He has to go 6 or 7 innings and only allow 1 to 2 runs. But obviously, the biggest key for the Brewers is the offense. Yelich has to come through. He has to be better. He has to get at least on base. His on-base percentage isn't awful, but he has to get on base not more than he doesn't, but he has to get on base a lot in this series, because then you can give Ryan Braun a chance, give Keston Hiura, Daniel Vogelbach a shot after that. Need more productive outs overall in this series. You need more outs that are going to get runners over, that are going to get, sacrifice flies, ground ball, to the right side to get the guy from second to third. You need more productive outs, not so many strikeouts. Like I said, Keston Hiura, the NL worst 34.6% strikeout rate. That cannot happen in this series. You can't do that against the Dodgers. You got to get runners on base, and you got to move them over when you can. Maybe you see a bunt or 2, but obviously, we saw Omar Narvaez trying to bunt against the Cardinals Saturday night, and it just didn't go well. So I don't know if bunting might be off the table, but either way, there's an opportunity for the Milwaukee Brewers, to get runs over, even just on a sac fly or a ground ball. 2020 has been a weird year. Why not have the Brewers win this one, right? The NBA, you have a 5 seed in the NBA Finals in the Miami Heat. Of course, LeBron and Lakers have just, run all the way. But you have a 5 seed in the Miami Heat who have upset, every single round they've won. They beat the 1, the 4, the 3 seed, and are now in the finals. And so 2020 has been a weird year. Why not have the Brewers continue that and go right along with that? Because the Brewers would follow suit. But again, Game 1 coming up Wednesday night, 9 o'clock, Brewers, Dodgers. Hopefully you learned a little something about this series, kind of talked a little bit about all the different nuances, pitching, hitting, where they rank, and kind of my thoughts on the series. So enjoy the series. Like I said, enjoy it. Don't, just because this team has been, hard to watch at times, right? They've kind of pushed you away, pulled you back in because they, lose by 7 and then they score 19. It's been a weird year. It's been a weird year overall. let's go see what the Brewers can do, and at least it's some postseason baseball. Carl Ravitch will have the call as the play-by-play man. I believe with Eduardo Perez, they're going to have this series, Brewers-Dodgers, on ESPN. So first game, 9 o'clock. If you are driving around and want to listen to the game, WKTY 96.7 FM, 580 AM will have it for you. We might do some special pregame stuff on the WKTY social medias. So I'll update you on that on my social medias, which you can follow me on Twitter and Instagram at HunterBOnAir. And definitely do that because I will update you. We might do some pregame, postgame stuff with these games. So I'm excited for that. So definitely stay tuned for updates on that. But go Brewers. Let's have fun with this. Wednesday night, first game, 9 o'clock, and enjoy some postseason baseball. It's going to be like postseason baseball from like 11 or noon like every day because they've got so many games to get in because there's 8 teams. It's crazy. So we shall see what happens. Brewers, Dodgers, massive underdog in the Milwaukee Brewers. Hopefully they can take it. Again, you can follow me on Twitter and Instagram at HunterBOnAir. You can watch or listen to the podcast, watch on YouTube or listen on SoundCloud. Simply search Hunter Baumgardt Sports Podcast. You can like the Facebook page as well, Hunter Baumgardt Sports. Until next week, go Brewers, and as always, stay positive.